Here are 7 great science fiction novellas. Let's get into it. These 7 novellas aren't going to be ranked in any specific order. They're simply 7 science fiction stories that I found to be great and fantastic reads. And of course, with novellas, they can be read in an afternoon or a couple of days, so they're short reads. But these have very impactful stories, very enjoyable stories, and they're all 7 recommended books. And I'm going to try to cover a variety of subgenres. So let's start with book number 1. Novella number 1, we're going to start off with the cyberpunk. Ghost of the Neon God by T.R. Napper. If you thought cyberpunk ended with the 80s, think again. This book, a recent release from 2024, is a modern cyberpunk novel, and this one has an interesting setting from being in Australia. It's fast-paced, it's fun. We take on the normal tropes of cyberpunk, that low-life, high-tech combination that makes the genre so enjoyable. In this one, we start out with a couple of thugs. They are out on the streets and they decide to try to steal from the wrong person. Jackson Nguyen is a petty crook living on the slim streets of Melbourne. When he crosses paths with a desperate but wealthy Chinese dissident begging for his help, Jack responds in the only way natural to him. He steals her shoes. And yet, despite every effort to mind his own business, a wild spiral into the worst kind of trouble begins. This one's got murder, a car chase, mayhem, corrupt cops, and a highway adventure through the Australian outback. It's a simple story, but it has some interesting concepts, a ghostly AI, and some wider implications for the politics of this world that T.R. Napper has created. If you're looking for a modern cyberpunk story, and you haven't found quite what you're looking for, check out Ghost of the Neon God by T.R. Napper. Novella number 2 is a hard science fiction novella by none other than Greg Egan, master of hard sci-fi. The story is called Phoresis, detailing life on an icy, desolate planet, a generations-long construction project, and the journey and exploration of a new but familiar world. The survival of the species depends on the ingenuity and the courage of the planet's inhabitants. In Phoresis, 2 twin planets circle each other, while one is inhabited and the other is not. The inhabited planet, Verbura, is experiencing the decline of conditions necessary for food production. Geysers that start deep beneath the planet's crust are needed to bring water and trees to the surface, creating soil and the proper conditions for grasslands. The geysers are happening less frequently, and the inhabitants of Verbura depend on them for survival. An ambitious project is started to build an icy bridge between Verbura and its twin planet, Viburi. Phoresis showcases the best of Greg Egan's talent for hard science fiction and the exploration of new ideas. We get to explore the physics of building a towering structure of ice, the difficulty of life on an icy planet, and the ways in which life could exist on such an icy world. This novella is heavily focused on physics and concepts, and like most of Greg Egan's writing, the focus is on the science and the ideas, rather than the character building, but that's okay because this has some truly interesting and fascinating ideas. This is a great hard science fiction novella. If you're a fan of Greg Egan and you haven't checked this one out, definitely go find it and pick it up. If you have not read Greg Egan yet, it is a great starting place to get into Greg Egan and see what his style of writing is, and if you like his hard science fiction style of story. Novella number 3 is Live Suit by James S.A. Corey. So this one's a little bit different from the other 6 because it is part of a series, the new Captives War series by James S.A. Corey. The first book, The Mercy of Gods, is number 1 in the series. Live Suit is technically considered 1.5. So if you haven't read The Mercy of Gods yet, I would recommend it. It was a 5-star read for me. And this novella brings a lot of context to the Captives War series, but I think you could also read this as a standalone story, and it kind of fits the military sci-fi subgenre, and it's a very good story in its own right. And none of the characters in this story connect with the Mercy of Gods or the follow-up The Faith of Beasts, so it has completely different characters. It just shares the same universe and adds some context to the two full-length novels, but it's definitely a good story in its own right. The story is about a group of soldiers fighting against the alien Carrick's Empire. The soldiers wear a type of body armor called a live suit that melds to their bodies. It provides all of the wearer's needs, water, nutrients, oxygen, that sort of thing, protects them from outside forces, and it gives them the ability to survive in a hostile atmosphere. It also heals their wounds and keeps their wearer alive, sometimes far beyond what medical treatment could do. The novella provides some really interesting futuristic technology in the live suit, and the story is fast-paced with an intriguing plot of the personal sacrifice of the live suit volunteers. I think if you're a fan of books like Armor by John Stakely, or maybe even Old Man's War by John Scalzi, this is definitely a military sci-fi. It's about soldiers fighting an alien empire, and the focus of the book is on this amazing live suit technology. And the story leads to some dark places that involve the live suit technology, but it's a really fascinating story, a really great concept, and it is definitely a recommended read. Novella number 4, a recent release from 2025 and one of my top reads from last year. This one is from none other than the master of science fiction and my favorite author, Alistair Reynolds, and it is The Dagger and Vichy. And this is a novella that I would describe as medieval science fiction. This is a fascinating tale in which a future society has regressed back to medieval times. Yet advanced technology still lingers from ages past. It is a story that plays with Arthur C. Clarke's theme of sufficiently advanced technology being indistinguishable from magic. I've come to really enjoy stories that take characters in a low-tech society and then introduce them to some kind of advanced and unexplainable tech, and then seeing how those characters react. In this novella, a troupe of actors traveling across France in a wagon encounter a dying soldier on the road. This soldier entrusts them with delivering a mysterious box to the Imperator in Avignon. Master Gillum, playwright and leader of the troupe, agrees to deliver the box and promises not to open it. A young actor and thief who is saved from the noose by Master Gillum overhears his master speaking to the box, and from there the story erupts. This was a quickly paced story that can be read in an afternoon. The story showcases Alistair's typical creative genius and his mastery over the science fiction genre. The characters are compelling and the plot is exciting. As usual, Al gives us just enough background information to let our imagination ponder the possibilities and yearn for more. I would definitely recommend The Dagger and Vichy. It is the perfect mix of medieval science fiction, a mashup that is not seen very often. Novella number 5. This one came out in 2024 and is another one that was my top reads for the year. In 2024, this may even be my number 1 read from that year. And it is a story from Ray Naylor, The Tusks of Extinction. In this novella, Naylor resurrects the steppe mammoth and brings a profoundly thoughtful story along with it. It is a science fiction story set in the future, beset by poachers of the modern-day African elephant, telling of a war between those who would protect the elephants and those who would poach them for their ivory. Essentially a story that is happening right now, a story that is a very real-life problem for the African elephants in today's time. Nearly 20,000 elephants are murdered every year for their tusks, which is a truly disheartening statistic. In Tusks of Extinction, Naylor philosophizes about this cruelty of the killing of elephants, and he extrapolates it into a future where the mammoth is brought back, with a herd led by one of the world's foremost experts in elephant behavior. Dr. Demira has her consciousness digitized, and decades later is revived into the body of a mammoth. Because the mammoth of the future does not know how to live in the wild on its own, and it's up to Dr. Demira to teach the herd how to survive. In this book, she's essentially the matriarch of this mammoth herd, because her mind has been inserted into this mammoth brain, and she's able to use her knowledge of elephant behavior to help this mammoth herd. We also feel the rage and frustration of Dr. Demira as she faces down poachers, and we can't help but sympathize. And we also follow the story of a young man trekking through the Siberian tundra with his father and a group of poachers, and the story of a wealthy hunter paying a huge sum to be the first person to hunt a mammoth. This novella highlights a highly important ecological issue with the poaching of elephants, and it does so in a thoughtful, interesting, and powerful way using science fiction as the medium. I would recommend any reader to pick this one up. It is a fantastically told story, bringing back the mammoth, giving the mammoth the mind of a scientist to lead the herd, and taking on the ethical issue of poaching. Novella number 6 is a space opera featuring Catholic nuns. Sisters of the Vast Black by Lena Rather. This is a story about the Sisters of the Order of St. Rita, a group of nuns traveling through space. This group of nuns care for and maintain a living organic ship. The story follows the point of view of the nuns, switching perspective from each character throughout the novella. So as you'd expect from a story involving a collection of nuns, this is not an action-oriented space opera, but rather a tale of the mercy and the stubborn determination of the compassion of nuns. This novella addresses the nature of religion in a mild and respectful approach without resorting to a preachy tone. So if you're not religious, I think you're still going to enjoy this story. In this novella, the ladies of the Order of St. Rita live aboard the living ship Our Lady of Impossible Constellations. The story gives us the details of what caring for and maintaining a living ship might look like, including providing health care and routine examinations of the ship. Part of the novella's plot involves the nuns debating the issue of allowing the ship to mate and produce offspring, and whether that is within the church's doctrine to allow that to happen. The nuns also provide religious services to colonies throughout space, traveling from one colony to another to provide medical aid. One of the nuns is a talented amateur scientist and works to create a vaccine treatment for a particularly dangerous and fatal disease. Among the nuns are those who have their secrets, from a nun hiding a forbidden romance to the Reverend Mother hiding a dark past. They all have their own stories and hopes for the future. After they receive a distress call from a colony, they must decide if helping those in need is worth defying authority and putting their own lives at risk. I really enjoyed this novella. It was a quick read, and the living ship concept is very interesting. And these lives and actions that the nuns take throughout the story make for a very compelling plot. The final novella of this list, novella number 7, and this is my favorite novella of all time. It's my favorite of the list. And this has been a great list of stories, but this one is my number 1 by a good margin. It is another Alastair Reynolds. Alastair Reynolds is my favorite author, so I am going to have 2 Alastair Reynolds on this list. But this is a truly fantastic story. It's set in his Revelation space universe, but it can be read as a standalone. And this one is Diamond Dogs. So this particular collection has 2 novellas, Diamond Dogs, Turquoise Days. I'm specifically only talking about Diamond Dogs. This is a dark and gritty story. It has some incredible concepts, a really engaging and compelling story, and some weird and exotic and creative characters. Diamond Dogs tells the story of a group of mercenaries trying to unravel the mystery of this inhospitable alien tower on a distant world. It tells the story of this group of characters that will basically do everything they can. They will go to every length imaginable to climb through this spire, this alien spire. And this spire, this giant tower that's on this alien planet, it's the only thing on this planet, this rocky planet, this mysterious structure. Nobody knows who built it. Nobody knows the origins. But these mercenaries are climbing up into it. It is composed of different layers, different rooms, and they have to traverse through each room, and it has a door that needs to be unlocked in some specific way. And each room as they progress requires more extreme actions, more extreme modifications for these characters to get through into the next room. So we have these characters doing the most extreme things. Body modification, cybernetic implants, that sort of thing. They are constantly altering themselves in order to make it through the next door. It is a very dark and gritty story. It has elements of horror. It has an extremely imaginative plot. You never know what lengths the characters are going to go through to make it through this spire. And you can kind of compare it with some of the extreme lengths that people in real life go to climb mountains like Mount Everest, Mount Kilimanjaro, those sort of things, risking their lives to simply climb this mountain to say that they can. This is kind of a similar concept, except with this extremely interesting alien structure. And it is set in the Revelation Space universe. You don't have to have read the Revelation Space books to enjoy this story. It can be read as a standalone. The characters in this book are just incredibly fascinating. Weird characters, strange motivations, cyborgs. I mean, this has some really interesting stuff in it. If you haven't read this story, Diamond Dogs, if you like Alistair Reynolds, you're going to really enjoy this story. It's, in my opinion, the greatest novella that I've ever read, and I can't recommend this story enough. So check it out if you like dark and gritty stories, if you like alien mysteries, if you like extreme cybernetics, imaginative, creative characters. It's all in here, and that makes it to my list of the #1 science fiction novellas. And that's it. Those are the 7 great novellas that I recommend for you to read. We've got a variety of genres, from cyberpunk to medieval science fiction to space opera. Let me know in the comments, which are your favorite novellas? Have you read any of the ones that I mentioned here? Don't forget to like and subscribe. As always, thank you for watching. See you next time.